What's up, guys? I want to welcome you to the first 2021 Q&A video. So if you have any questions, post them down below and let's keep grinding and growing. Honestly, I'm so happy that's a new year and I can't wait to keep providing this content that you deserve. So we got this. No one can stop us. We create our own reality. That's the truth. So with that said, let's get this Q&A started. Hi, Alex. Thoughts on a hybrid upper-lower full body? For example, Monday intensity lower, Wednesday intensity upper, Friday volume full body. Interesting little setup, but I'm not a fan of this because one of your days is going to take a hit. What's more important to you, upper body or lower body? Because what I can say is this: maxing out on squats, deadlifts, doing lots of work on the Wednesday will 100%, no questions asked, interfere with your Friday full body segment. So if you want to do an upper-lower with a full body, I'd recommend you do Monday, Tuesday, the classic setup, and then your Friday full body. But even with that, something is taking a hit while gaining a bit. What I mean is your upper body workout should have been on the Thursday, but now you're extending it to Friday. So you're getting an extra rest day, which is not really a bad thing, but it's still not proportionate. Whereas the lower is balanced in this way. So you got to ask what's more important to you. If you're a bench specialist, maybe you can prefer this setup. Could I see myself running this? Maybe. Knowing that I'm kind of lazy with leg training, this would be a perfect setup. But if I wanted to maximize my results, just from a general recovery standpoint, I would probably do the standard upper lower, or just a full body twice a week, or a full body 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, heavy light medium setup. But going back to you, this setup should work for building strength and size, just that it's not balanced. So you need to identify for yourself if that's worth it or not. Thoughts on doing Bulgarian for 2 lifts every day, but doing volume PRs instead of 1 rep maxes. Incline bench and front squat at 5-10 rep range every day, for example. I like the concept. I would probably do this myself. Like, I'm actually curious because you can technically mix in 1 upper and 1 lower movement every single day. They're completely different muscle groups and I don't see why it'll interfere. Heck, you can mix in 2 uppers if they're vastly different. If I do weighted dips, I could hit inverted rows right after. What's going to be the problem with that? Though that might not be your exercise of choice on a Bulgarian type program, but I digress. I would definitely give this a shot. You got guys who are running high frequency programs, going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week with a ton of exercises, typically in a full body fashion. So what's one set with sub-maximal loads every day on areas that are completely different? You can probably get away with this. Just ensure that your calories are on point. You need to be sleeping. You got to be managing all your recovery variables. Maybe include some massage in there too. And of course, the caffeine, that's going to be helpful. So I don't know how long to be able to pull this off. Some guys end up alternating days. So 1 day upper, 1 day lower if they want to include more than 1 lift at the same time. That's what I've seen with other lifters, but just off my own speculation, I think what you're suggesting would work great. It's not like you're hyping up and doing crazy 1 rep maxes. It's basically high frequency bodybuilding training. And I can see you getting a lot more jacked with this than your standard Bulgarian program that has you just doing a bunch of singles, triples, 5s, etc. Hey Alex, when do you know when you're ready for weighted dips over body weight dips? You'll probably know when that time arrives, but I would say most people should be able to do at least 10 repetitions. Like, that is the bare minimum. But honestly, you can milk it for so much longer. Guys are rushing into weighted calisthenics when they don't even have a foundation in many cases. Like, I've seen guys who can do 3 to 5 pull-ups and now they're already trying to add weight. They're micro-loading. Like, why not get strong at the standard stuff first, and then the moment you throw on the weight, you'll already be at a higher starting point. When I began doing weighted dips, I was already able to hit 20 plus. This was a standard part of my program. In fact, I used to do it in a circuit training type way, very high volume, and the carryover was there. So I wasn't weak when I got into the weighted version. A lot of guys are just rushing it so quickly when just got to stay committed to the process. Enjoy it, man. But if you're really eager to get into it, like I said, 10, that works. But I personally wouldn't do that. Maybe get 12, 15 reps first, or even in the 15 to 20 range. I think that's a lot more reasonable, but you can do what you want. If I'm not being dogmatic, the truth is, once you hit 10 reps, you can start microloading and you'll be fine. It's just not what I did, and it's not what I think is necessary for most people. Do you recommend upper lower program or full body 2 to 3 times a week for advanced lifters who also work manual labor jobs on feet 8 hours a day? Asking this from the recovery standpoint. It depends how you feel after working, man. Some guys will hit upper body right after their work, and that alone destroys them because they were already tired going into the workout. If you were asking them to hit some squats and rows and deadlifts right after, they'd be like, screw you, I'm not doing this. So it depends what your line of work is. It depends what your work capacity is. A lot of different factors. What I'll say is that there's nothing wrong with either approach, and it really comes down to personal preference at the end of the day and what works best with your individual psychology and scheduling. I'm not going to talk about what's more optimal here because it can go either way. Like, I can make the argument that because you're so used to doing manual labor, that a full body workout is not going to be problematic. You're already on your feet all day, you're working every muscle regardless. So what's it to you doing a 90-minute session where every muscle is incorporated? I can say that you'll get better recovery from that because you can go in twice a week, full body, same muscle protein synthesis as the upper lower, and because you have the work capacity to handle it, I mean, you get more rest days. So wouldn't that be a better option? But then I could say you're going to be so dead at the end of your job that you can't handle full body. So it's going to be half-assed, and that trade-off doesn't become worth it. So you see what I'm saying? I'm not going to tell you what's better. You'll know for yourself once you start experimenting. Hi Alex, can I increase my push-up reps by increasing my dip reps due to the fact that during dips we are lifting a higher body weight percentage in push-ups? Would you say that if someone is able to do 100 dips in a row, would that person do 100 plus push-ups in a row? If you could do 100 dips in a row, you could probably do 150 push-ups easy. The max dips I've done in one set, I believe, was 73 or 74. And I can do over 120 push-ups. Imagine a guy who could do 100 dips in one set. Like, that's an insane feat of strength. I think there is a very small percentage of population who could pull that off. Like, you have to be elite in terms of calisthenics, weighted and non-weighted, and just being a badass lifter overall. Like, look at Brian Alster. I think he did 76 or 78 dips, and his bench was in the high fours, or maybe even 500. I don't recall the exact numbers here. My mind's a bit hazy on this, but all I'm saying is dips are very hard. They're significantly more difficult than a push-up, and the carryover is instant. I've seen some guys who can rep out serious numbers on the dips, come in and do advanced moves right off the bat on the floor. The hardest possible variations of push-ups right off the bat. What have I been saying for years on this channel? Strength is strength. So there's no reason why this wouldn't work, put it like that. Just that your expectations might be a bit unrealistic. Do I see myself hitting 100 dips in a row? Maybe in a few years. I don't think it's happening anytime soon. That is absolutely insane. I commend you if you can pull it off, and maybe you could, but that's, I know it's a hypothetical, but it's something else, let me say. So yes, the carryover is instant. You can do dips exclusively for the rest of your life, and you'll come in, put up elite numbers on your push-ups every single time. What are your thoughts on trap bar deadlift specialization? I see nothing wrong with this. You want to maximize your trap bar pull, let's say get 700, 800 pounds, whatever floats your boat, go ahead and do that. Even though it's not part of a competition, that doesn't matter. You set your own standards. You want a bigger trap bar pull. It is what it is. No one can say shit to you. This is what you want. Anyone who says that this is a bad exercise or that you need to do a conventional pull, otherwise you're a or you're not getting any real benefits, is dogmatic asshole, and you should never listen to anything they have to say. People who are biased like that are only hurting you. So I'm telling you what the truth is. Trap bar pulls are easier on your recovery, less chances of breaking down lower back and form in general, still get you jacked and strong, and still give you all the significant benefits of deadlifting. It's just a little bit more quaddy compared to a conventional pull. And you can, for that, you can check out Greg Knuckles' article on the trap bar deadlift. He actually says that for a lot of recreational lifters, this might be the better choice. And this is a competitive powerlifter with extreme credentials, one of the best in the industry telling you this. So that's who you gotta listen to. Hey Alex, should I do concurrent periodization if I want to increase my strength, but hypertrophy is my main priority? Sounds like the perfect setup for you, because concurrent maximizes both. Nothing is left behind. This is people who want the best of all worlds. There's tremendous debate of what's more important, volume or intensity, or what's required for hypertrophy training, or what is the best for strength training. All of that confusion is obliterated when we talk about concurrent periodization. We're doing all the rep ranges, all the percentages, hitting all the major movement patterns, rotating exercises. There's no more confusion left. This solves all the major problems in the fitness community. We don't have to be so nitpicky. This is the way. It's how I've been training for many years. It's what I personally recommend. It's what I'm going to keep doing. So I'm not going to start explaining all the benefits. I've made hundreds of videos talking about this already, so you can use the channel search bar to find out what applies to you right now. But just know that this is one of the best moves you're ever going to make. You're going to get massive, which is the main goal. Since we're following all the hypertrophy guidelines, our volume is high enough, the frequency is good, and we're hitting all the important exercise and addressing our weaknesses, which is important for strength training, by the way. You're only as strong as your weakest link after all. And of course, the strength training aspect is not neglected in any type of way. And if you want to dial that down a little bit, well, there are strategies for doing that. Like doing 3 sets of 190%, instead of 1 rep maxes, or just replacing that for 5x5s, which is a nice intermediate zone. So you don't have to go as balls to wall as you think on those intensity workouts. So in this way, we're getting that blending action, and everything that you want is going to be perfect. Why can't I go to failure every set? Technically you could. You are going to get jacked and strong, just that this may not be the best for long-term fatigue management. You're going to need more deloads, you're going to feel more beat down, and for how many better muscle gains? That's the question. I don't think it's as significant as some guys make it out to be, provided that your volume is sufficient, your frequency is on point, and generally speaking, your reps in reserve are close to zero. So there are ways to manage your training without having to go to failure every single set. I don't think that's the best way to train personally. I personally like to leave a rep or two in the tank, or if I am going to failure, it's going to be more so on the isolations or at the end of my compound movements. So on the final exercise or on my final sets, especially if I'm doing a lot of sets. Like if I did 5 sets, which isn't even a crazy amount, maybe I'll go to failure on set 3 and 4. That's to be expected. So that would be more reasonable instead of doing set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all to failure, and maybe even doing beyond, like with force reps or drop sets. I'd much rather you tone back the intensity and add in some more exercises or volume and frequency than just going balls to the wall 100%, just sabotaging your recovery, because that's really what's going to matter the most in the long run. And like I said, you don't want to feel beat down either. And injury management does play a role in this as well, just saying. Hey Alex, you think belt squats are an effective exercise for building strength and size? Yes, I think it's one of the best movements of all time, and some guys would actually prefer this over traditional barbell back squats. Stimulus fatigue ratio is excellent. You're using a fraction of the load, yet still getting all the leg building benefits. Typically goes very well with high reps as well. You know, the back's not gonna be a limiting factor. There's so many good things to say about the belt squat, and most of you should definitely be experimenting with it, just saying. Then you say, I can load up 90 pounds in place, but I do have sandbags I can hold if I want more resistance. Do you also think I would absolutely need a loading pin for this, or I can just use a dip belt? Okay, interesting. So you'd be holding a sandbag plus having 90 pounds right below you. That's a pretty cool idea. Actually, I think there's a variation of a squat where it's a back squat plus a belt squat. So it kind of sounds to me like you're mimicking this with the sandbag. You got a pretty functional exercise right there. And with the sandbag, you're probably going to hold it up here. So you're going to get some extra core engagement as well. Might allow you to keep that torso angle a bit more straight instead of leaning forward. I mean, it's a cool little concept. I would definitely give it a shot, especially if you are limited and you don't want to do super high reps. This could be that nice bridging point. And then you asked me about the loading pin, if that's necessary. No, that's a little hack that I've been using for years, but most people don't actually do this. Even some elite calisthenics athletes. And I don't know why. Because the loading pin is so much better in every possible way. Like, you don't have to set it up every time. You just walk up, clip it, get to work. The plates don't swing around either. So to me, it's objectively better. But you don't need it. That's the truth. If you suspend a chain, you'll be okay. Just make sure those plates aren't swinging like crazy and adjust it so that they're closer to your body. Because when you do full range of motion, you don't want the plates hitting the ground. And with the loading pin, if it's a bit shorter, you can actually get a greater range of motion in some cases. So I would look out for that. Hey Alex, you think it's realistic to have a 405 times 12 squat and a 500 times 12 deadlift while being a new intermediate weighing 176? That's elite, not intermediate. So I would say it's impossible to have that as a new intermediate, because that's not what that level of strength represents. This is a goal that you should seek to achieve if you care about the squats and deadlifts within a 10-year time frame, realistically speaking. I definitely think it's possible, and I'm a firm believer that most naturals have way more strength potential than they realize. With those numbers they just wrote out, it would equate to a 600-something deadlift and a squat in the high fives. We've seen lots of powerlifters in the 165 to 181 class pull this off. Obviously, there's a lot of enhanced guys out there, but we do still have a pool of natties that are hitting great numbers. And what used to be the standard in 2013, a lot of guys are hitting all the time now. And even in myself, I'm not a power lifter. I'm not a freak of any type. You saw me do a 385 bench. And a lot of guys are saying nowadays that 405 is a new 315. Like if I would have done 385 in 2012, 2013, my God, it would have been something else. But now a lot of guys are hitting this because we know what people are capable of. We have better strength training methods, just a greater understanding of programming as a whole. And we know what's possible when we put in the work for many years. Just look at Johnny Candido, for example. He's hitting numbers now that used to be the record back then. And he never thought that he was going to hit that, but he did. So it's about being committed to the process long term. And I do think you can hit these numbers. I think I can hit them too, even though I don't care about squats and deads. But maybe that's going to change. Maybe at some point I'll be like, damn, I've been a fool. I wasted my time being lazy, and maybe by now I would have had those numbers, you know? But all I'm saying is this is realistic. Just like a 4.5 is realistic as a natty. I think it could be done at 165, not even the weight that you're suggesting. And that's personally what I'm going to try to do. 4.5 bench in the 160s. So I believe a lot more people can hit these numbers if they were truly dedicated to the natty game. How come I can incline 225 for 8 and only get 225 for 10 on the flat bench? I'm sure it's a complicated answer, but what muscle weaknesses would first come to mind? Yeah, that's very strange. But I'll say a few things. A lot of guys who perform incline bench perform half reps. I don't know why this is the case, but if you're doing 90-degree reps, that explains everything. So are we talking about the exact same execution, full range of motion, if you're also pausing on your flat bench, or are you doing the same on your incline? I'm assuming you are, right? But what about the angle itself? Are you using a really shallow incline? Because if it's a super high one that you see in those commercial gyms, I don't even see how that would be possible. Your bench should probably be close to 315 or even be above in some cases, depending on your muscular weaknesses. I've never been a strong incline presser, so I can't really tell you the exact numbers on this. But regardless, that doesn't make sense in my world. I just can't compute that unless we're talking about half reps or using a really shallow incline to the point where it's not even an incline. So the only explanation I could have beyond that is an extreme pectoral weakness. It has to be that if it's not what I previously mentioned. So in that case, you need to, first of all, start doing a lot more flat bench. Incline is not what you need right now. Obviously, more weighted dips, get that deep stretch in the pecs, maybe even include some flies in your case. We all have different weaknesses, man. You're probably an arm dominant lifter as well, just saying. So I would say your whole strategy needs to be revised. Definitely stay away from incline pressing, OHB, and just make everything flat, maybe even decline as well. Get your pecs as jacked as humanly possible. Stay away from the vertical stuff. You want to be in that flat plane. Even doing floor presses, flat bench with a Swiss bar, like you have the opposite weaknesses of me. Actually, if you train how I did in 2018, that ratio is going to be corrected right off the bat. So I'll end off this question by saying just do more bottom work as a whole, more pause pressing, dead benching, stuff like that. This will be resolved because your ratio is not normal. That's the truth. Advice on how to do block pulls in the gym when there's no mats or anything. Should I just use the weights as a block? Anybody got advice on this? Thank you. How high should the bar be on the block pull? Great question. I wouldn't use regular plates because you might actually destroy them. So unless it's a bumper plate, which I have seen some guys post some serious numbers on, I wouldn't really mess with the plates. So let's scrap the plate option. What can we do now? Well, there's always rack pulls. Very similar pulling mechanics. I don't see how your gains would be that much different. Yeah, it's pulling the slack out a little bit, but overall, the muscle and strength effects and the overall carryover will be comparable, absolutely. So I would deal with those. Otherwise, why not just bring your own mats to the gym? This is what I would have done years ago, honestly. Same thing for microplates, by the way. You're looking around, scavenging for those 2.5s, when you could just stick them in your backpack and you're all good. And mats are not massive, man. You can even cut them so that it fits the dimensions of how many plates you're going to be fitting on that bar. And that should easily fit in a school bag or anywhere. Like even just shoving them in your car. You get to the gym, walk in there with a few mats on each arm. What's the problem? I see guys all the time with big gym bags and all kinds of equipment in there. You see powerlifters who bring their own barbells to the gym in some cases. So what's freaking foam mats? Most guys who see you with that will just assume that they were already a part of the gym. And even if they are being judgmental, who cares? You're there to get a block pull workout, and maybe that's better than doing rack pulls, and now people are really gonna get pissed, especially if you start bending those bars, which are probably already cheap to begin with. So I would just bring mats, and that solves every possible problem. They're cheap, you can walk in with them, no one's gonna say shit. And for the height, I would keep it between 1 to 4 inches above the ground. That's all you should really need. You can mess with the 5 or 6 inches too, but most lifters won't have to go that high, though it does work. But I would personally say that the higher positions are best reserved for taller guys. A good rule of thumb is do not let the block pull exceed 100 pounds more than your pull from the ground. Hey Alex, what's your opinion on decline bench for a recreational lifter? This lift feels much easier on the shoulders for me compared to flat, even with form accounted for. Yeah, years ago, I would have told you that the decline bench was overrated and that you should just do flat bench exclusively. There's nothing wrong with it and you're going to get all the gains you ever wanted. And to that, I would say it's still technically valid, but I see things differently now because of injury prevention. I think that is the number one priority of any serious lifter. And if decline bench allows you to maximize shoulder recovery, then to me, it's absolutely worth it. And what I personally found, by the way, is that dead benching on a slight decline, nothing significant now, maybe 1 to 2 inch mats right at the edge, makes a difference. And the numbers are still comparable. You might lift 10 pounds more, but your shoulders feel better. So to me, that's always going to take priority. The same reason why I do slingshot bench. And even when you do accommodating resistance, it's a bit lighter at the bottom compared to the top. And what a lot of guys don't realize is as you get stronger, this is a real concern because of absolute load. So with the decline bench, you're reducing the range of motion a bit. Your pecs are still going to get massive. Some guys would say that you're getting even more gains, though I wouldn't necessarily agree with that part. And you get a little bit of a tricep overloader. So go for it, man. Why not? Just that, I will say this. I don't recommend the extreme declines. I think it's better to manually set it with the mats. 1 to 4 mats at the edge of your bench, that's going to be a perfect starting position. You can still use your leg drive. You're not going to feel like you're almost falling off the bench. You won't have to secure your legs either. And overall, it's going to have a bit more carryover without compromise. So that's what I would personally do these days. But hey, if you want to make the standard decline bench your go-to, I don't have a problem with it because your shoulder health really does matter. And even if we do have perfect form on the flat bench, we can't deny that increased range of motion, especially with a heavier load, is a bit harder on the shoulders. Hey Alex, currently have a shoulder injury, more specifically being shoulder impingement, which is disabling me from doing push-up and most pressing movements. However, I've started experimenting with dumbbell floor presses, which gives me minimal to no shoulder pain. Would you recommend this exercise as a temporary substitute, and would it be effective for gaining strength and size? It would be. In fact, I would encourage you to watch the 2 videos I made on the floor press. One is with the barbell, and the other one is the 1-arm dumbbell floor press. So you can do 2 arms with that too. I would say that it's an excellent, not only substitute, but complete replacement. It's a preset range of motion that will typically be a slight partial for most lifters, and you're breaking up the eccentric concentric chain, which is better on your recovery, but also builds more explosiveness. And for you, you got the wide base. I bet when you flat bench at a commercial gym, those benches are so narrow that just that is causing your shoulders to feel pain. Like I probably wouldn't go back to doing that. I'd maybe invest in a fat pad for the gym specifically. So the wider base, all the other factors I talked about, that'll already make a difference. And you can still keep getting stronger on those floor presses. So when your shoulder is finally recovered, your flat bench should still be really up there. If your floor press is 250 right now and you take it to 315, I would say that your flat bench will be over 315 or at least 315, depending on your leverages. Some guys do a bit more, a bit less, but I see the carryover being instant. And this is what I personally witnessed over the years with those who follow my novice program while using the floor press. You just get strong. And I know for me, the carryover is insane. One of the best lifts I've ever found for raising the raw bench automatically. If I do nothing but floor presses, it goes up because it is a difficult exercise. And like you said, minimize impingement. So if that's the only press you could do and it won't contribute to your rehab going worse, then you are a lucky man. You're lucky that you're able to do one of the best pressing exercises of all time. Alex, what do you think about deload weeks? Is it worth it? If so, should we program in advance or just do it when we feel our body needs it? I think deloads make a big difference. It's worth it. I recommend it. I think all of us should be doing deloads throughout the year. Now, the question is, when should they be incorporated? You have different answers on this. Some guys say it should be added in every 4th week, regardless of how you feel. This way, there's never going to be a guessing period or a regression of some type due to overuse. So that cuts out that variable, which is kind of intelligent, but you might not get as many strength gains at the end of the year, though how many gains are you making anyway if you're at a certain level, right? So does that slowdown really matter considering all the sessions that we're already going to be doing, especially if it's a high frequency maximized system? So there is that to consider, but then you got another perspective every 3 months or coming back from a competition or just really feeling beat down. Maybe it's about giving yourself a psychological break. It can be a part of your natural lifestyle. When you get sick, when you go on vacation, whatever. Either way, deload should be incorporated. I think when you're past a certain point, you'll understand this to be true. Years back, I said, you don't need deloads. As long as you maximize your program, everything's gonna be fine. Well, I was a lot younger when I said that, and having deleted hundreds of videos, I can say that I wasn't right about everything. And that was certainly one of those things. Deloads make a big difference, especially as you get older and your recovery abilities are compromised to a certain extent. So I think deloads are important. I would probably do them every 3 months or just listen to my body. If I don't need one, I'm probably not going to do it. But if I really want to drop my ego as much as possible, I probably would do them every 3 months or go in that next level, just doing them even when I don't feel they're required whatsoever. So there's a lot of different answers to this question. Is it natural for a calisthenics athlete, me, to be stronger in pull rather than push? I always see examples of the opposite. Had an imbalanced starting point, I can pull up 20 kilos for 5 reps, whereas I absolutely struggle to do 20 kilos for 4 reps. All right, so you had a starting point where you overdid the pushing exercise and now your ratios have been distorted, right? That kind of reminds me of guys who did only upper body training and now they have an intermediate bench but novice lower body. Does that mean they're screwed? Does that mean it's always going to be that way? Hell no. It's an imbalanced ratio right now, but at some point it's inevitable that things catch up. So what you're experiencing is a muscular weakness, but the opposite of what most people experience. Truth is, if you're doing 100 kilos on your dips, which is probably going to happen in your lifetime, just saying, like high chance as a calisthenics athlete who really trains this seriously, there's no way in hell you're going to hit 100 kilos at the same rate on your pull-ups. We're talking close to world record status here. That is a serious feat of strength. You're probably going to have a 4-plate pull-up with a 5.5, maybe 6-plate dip. That's a more reasonable ratio. It's not going to be 1-to-1. So I wouldn't even stress about this problem. In fact, it's not really a bad thing because your structural integrity is probably better than those who do the opposite. Just know that at some point, it's going to balance out. There's nothing you have to think about. There's nothing you have to do. I wouldn't even tell you to specialize in your dips more. It's going to happen. Mark my words, your dip is going to surpass that pull-up at some point. When you become more, it's impossible that it won't when you become advanced. All right, guys, final question of the week. When I do skull crushers, my elbows hurt. Could you give me advice, please? My man, I used to have this problem back when I followed minimalist routines. You probably just need to rotate the variations and use a form that is a bit better for your anthropometry. For one, stop tucking in those elbows super freaking hard. Let them flare a little bit. It's all good. Some guys actually say that it's a bit better for the triceps. I know Paul Carter made an excellent argument for this. You can check out his Instagram page, right? So don't be so narrow. Flare out a bit and also allow some elbow movement. Don't keep your elbows perfectly stationary or have them completely pointed up. Point them back a little bit. This way, when you extend at that lockout, there's still tension on those strides. You're not locking out on the joints per se. Otherwise, you can experiment with dumbbells or using the Swiss bar. Maybe the neutral grip's gonna feel a bit better on your elbows. But I would say what I just suggested is probably gonna fix you, right? And if that doesn't help, then it's probably a tendon issue, which could be resolved with high repetition, band, push down. So for that, watch my video, The Elbow Pain Solution. I give you all the best guidelines that work for me and hundreds of lifters who employ this advice. So that's my advice. Let me know how it goes. And with that said, we're done this Q&A video. I think it was an excellent way to start off the year. Let me know if you have any questions down below. Let's see them. And I'll talk to you in the next segment.